but I've got this secret life on the side.
No, I'm going to get my relationship right with God as soon as I can stop this. And it's the most frustrating thing because like you're probably not going to be able to stop it without it.
Tony.
Yes.
We are back on the podcast after a month of burying our souls in the topic of lust, pornography, sex addiction. They wanted us back.
Yeah.
So we're continuing the conversation for another month, right?
Yeah, I think this is really a great idea.
And why? We talked about this. Like, why are we doing another month on this topic?
Well, it's a popular topic. I think we had a lot of people watch, got some good feedback on it. I think a lot of men deal with this.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like we provided some good information and some stories, but I feel like you could talk about this for such a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But I also am happy because there are some things that I also wanted to share just to sort of bring it all home. And I'm sure you probably have some things you thought, I did want to mention this. So that's why I'm glad we're doing this.
Yeah. A long conversation, digging into some other things and topics probably along the way. Looking back, I mean, guys can go on and we would encourage guys to go back and listen to last month's podcast, the series, because we had some kind of pointed conversation and topics that we hit. But for you, what were the highlights? I mean, what takeaway from our podcast? What did you learn from yourself?
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that because like it really did bring it back. Like you can talk about things that you have learned, but then sometimes you have to, keep reminding yourself. So like while we were doing the podcast, I was like, oh, you know what? I sort of forgot about this discipline that I got a little loose on. And so it was good for me to just bring it back to the forefront. But I really enjoy the science part of it. We did week 1 was rewiring your brain, right? And it's so crazy because a church service after that, that's what they were talking about. I was like, what the heck? Are they listening to the podcast? And then a couple of different small groups and conversations I had, people were talking about this. And I'm like, this is so amazing because it's knowledge that some people don't have. And to me, at least, I don't know about for you, but to me, it was a big part of healing and just knowing how to fight this, right?
Yeah, I agree. I really, that's a topic for sure as part of my journey for healing was, and we talked about it specifically already, but man, that it's not just a spiritual battle. Like, for sure it's a spiritual battle, but it's not just a spiritual battle. Like, it's not just, hey, just, and God works in different ways. So some guys, we talked about this. We have stories. I got guys in my life who have had miraculous, like, freedom. They've had a powerful prayer time or moment. The next day they're like, man, I'm not drawn to porn at all. And like, they don't struggle with it again. It's like, that's awesome. Most guys are probably not in that place. And so like there's other dynamics, there's relational components, there's the psychological, there are there's so many things to it. And it actually, it speaks to our design. I mean, like, and we pointed it out. This is how we were designed. Like God has designed our bodies with the chemical reactions and responses and patterns and habits and connection and intimacy. Like those are actually part of God's design for us. And so pornography and lust and sexual addiction, like they pollute and pervert that and get us off track of what God wants for our best. So to me, that holistic picture is really important. And I think hopefully guys who are digging into this can get some encouragement to go, okay, there are other ways to approach this that maybe I haven't thought about. Hey guys, if this conversation is impacting you or a guy around you and you want to partner with us in our mission to change a culture one man at a time, you can go to menofiron.org/donate. Again, that's menofiron.org/donate. Let's get back to the conversation.
Guys that are tuning in right now, you're listening to two guys who have, I'll say for myself, been in bondage to this in my past. So if you're feeling like hopeless or helpless, or keep listening because we're passionate about this. The rewiring of the brain is such an important thing to know. but also looking to see if there was any trauma in your past. Like some guys won't even address that. And when I first heard it, I was like, oh, trauma? I didn't have any trauma in my past. And you start going back and you go, oh, maybe I did. So you have to identify those things as well. So it's all part of the fight. I do get a little frustrated when, you hear the pray it away and God can do everything. Of course he can. But one thing we talked about was how important the process is. Because if you and I didn't go through the process, how could we help someone else walk through the process? So, I'm grateful for that, and that hopefully we can help other men through it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. I mean, I think for me, thinking about the topics from the last podcast and what was particularly meaningful, I just think the theology of who God is and how he sees us is really important, and it relates to how we do community life in this topic and the church and how we address it or don't address it in church. Again, if it's such a prevalent topic in our culture, and again, we're speaking to men, but this is also an issue for women. And regardless, it impacts women, either whether it's their direct addiction or issue themselves. And so much of what happens in church, and not just with this topic, we come into church thinking that God can't be part of the mess. And so we have a view of God that's maybe distorted because we hear that God is holy, he is righteous, all those things, and they are true, but we give sin so much more power than it actually is. We go, well, God can't be in the presence of my sin, and so he can't be in the presence of me if I'm sinful, and so I got to deal with this over here. I can't come before him, when so much of the gospel is all about, yeah, you can't do it on your own. That's why you need to be in my presence. My holiness envelops and destroys what is dark. Light overcomes the darkness, and if you are afraid that you can't even walk into the room, then you never address it, and you just deal with it on your own. So that view of God is a big deal, and then that translates to how we interact with one another. So if I come into church or I'm in relationship with other men who are meant to be my support system and accountability, but if I feel like, wow, I've got to pretend like I've got it all together, I can't be transparent and vulnerable here. I mean, one, we're starting to take my view of this distorted view of God and then apply it to the brothers around me and the people around me. And then we have these churches that don't, they become, again, the Myers quote that I used in the podcast and the blog was, we kind of view God as like he's got this perfect white couch. No one can sit in, no one can sit on. You can't come into the room without being perfect. And church is supposed to be about a bunch of broken people who know that they need God's grace and his power to be different. And so I think for me, that theology of who God is and community is a big part of this journey for me, at least. So.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I'm thinking like we had some time to gather our thoughts like from the past episodes, and although I say, we have to know the science behind it, the God factor in it. So touching on what you just said, have you ever had people in your life that go, oh, I'm gonna get my relationship right with God as soon as I can stop this? And it's the most frustrating thing because you're probably not gonna be able to stop it without him. And by yourself, you're probably just gonna go in that cycle forever.
Yeah.
So we do have a loving God that forgives, that loves us exactly how we are at this exact moment. So I believe that coming to him with honesty, is crucial. And then, accountability of someone else coming along with you in the journey is also crucial. But so as I was thinking about this and doing some, meditation and praying about what, if I had another chance to speak about this, what would I want to really focus on? And sorry if it's repetitive, but it is what it is. It's, to me, having a holy fear or a reverence of God is important. And I don't know if I even brought that up. And this is not like fear he's going to strike me dead. And, he hates me fear. This is do I really honor and love God? Does he really have any authority in my life at all? Because maybe I wouldn't be doing these things if I felt that way. And again, I want to say it as a holy fear, not a fear of punishment. But that was helpful for me, as well as just connecting with him regularly. So when I was connecting with God regularly, like, this was completely intentional. I mean, waking up early, spending a decent amount of time with him. Over a process, over years, I started to fall in love with him in different ways, and also started feeling him loving me. And all of a sudden, I wanted to protect that relationship. Mm-hmm. So where there was something that I was trying to get that from, I was getting it from the only place that it was available. So I'm not sure about you or the guys that are listening, but like for me, I was trying to fill a void. And you could do it with food. You can do it with food. You can do it with plenty of things, right? We could all find things that we dive into and we go, this is where I get my fix. It could be alcohol, whatever. You get the idea. Porn or sexual addiction, it's in our drive, and it can make us feel better about ourselves. And I tell you, like, so my path, as I was sort of thinking about it this morning, is very much like the Israelites. And it's funny because I used to read that story and go, I don't know, is this a metaphor? There's no way they were wandering around for 40 years. Like, there's no possible way anyone's that stupid, especially after seeing everything they saw. Okay. And as I was writing down different bullet points about my story, I went, oh my goodness, I did the same thing. Yeah. And maybe longer. And I think about, so you're called to a promised land, right? So if you look at the story, we're called to be with God and be an heir, God is in us, and like that relationship, phenomenal. So there's our promise. So we start that journey, and somehow we end up getting a little lost. And what do? Well, you're not answering quick enough, so I'm going to do this. Mm-hmm. And I'm feeling this way, and I'm not going to wait for you to make me feel better, so I'm going to go and do this. And I'm going to complain, and I'm going to take control. And I even look about, the golden calf. What was that? An idol, right? Mm-hmm. What was sexual addiction? If it was more important than God, then it was an idol, right? So I'm looking at these things going, wow, not only am I, I may be worse than these guys, right? And there were things God did in my life that I just wouldn't draw from and wouldn't stick to and be like, wow, thank you. It was more like, no, I want this and I want that. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, but so let me ask you, like, when you were fighting this, where was your relationship with God?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question, because for me, I've known the Lord since I was very young. Elementary school, again, said the prayer, but like it was meaningful. Like I was following the Lord from an early age, and always had Scripture as a very important part of my life. I've got like prayer journals and Bible studies from when I was in 4th grade. Like I was very intentional. Spent a lot of time journaling and being with the Lord. And yet that is also when I stumbled across pornography for the first time. I was in elementary school, and that got a hook on me really quickly. Like it was very quick and anchored into that addiction, really very like, so yeah, I can look back at journals, and I remember praying for, I had to have a prayer list, praying for to stop masturbating and stop lust. Like this is like 4th, 5th grade. Like, and actually, another, it's a side note, but just as a note about shame, I would never be able to write. I couldn't write it out. I couldn't write out. I certainly couldn't say masturbation today, but like I would write out MSBN. Mm-hmm. That was my because I had so much shame as an elementary boy that I couldn't even write out the things I was struggling with. but I would go to the Lord on a regular basis. God, help me I don't want to do this. I know it's wrong. I want to stop, but I can't. And so like for years, from elementary on all the way through college and beyond, like very strong walk with the Lord, and still dealt with this sin. Always felt like, how can I get free of it? And so for me, and I won't jump ahead into what changed yet in terms of that, but like for me, it was a struggle. And maybe guys are sitting there going like, yeah, like I have a legitimate faith. I am walking with the Lord, but I'm still dealing with this. Does this legitimize my walk with him? Like, am I not really walking closely? Do I not have a faith? Am I faking things? Like, I certainly felt elements of being like a fraud around me. My dad was a youth pastor. I was very involved as a youth, like a leader in the youth group at school. But I was like, yeah, but I've got this secret life on the side where I can't get away from. So for me, I did feel like I was walking with the Lord, wanting freedom, working towards doing things. And I mentioned, I think last time, like either memorizing scriptures or reading books and having like I remember my old school desktop, at our house. I would so I don't get tempted. I'm going to put the Bible open in front of me as I'm on the internet, and it still didn't always work, right? So for me, that was my journey. What was it like for you? Like, were you, how did those dynamics play into your process? Thanks for listening to the Men of Iron podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. At Men of Iron, we exist to change a culture one man at a time, and we'd love to have you partner with us. So go to menofiron.org to see how you can get involved, or donate at menofiron.org/donate.